Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Donna.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Robert. Let me guess, is that a picture you took? It's beautiful.
Yes, yes.
Happy Friday. Who's the secret agent? Oh, I think I know who it is. Never mind.
It might be me, but I'm driving.
No, Bobby, I see your name. Now I know who the secret agent is. They texted me.
Good morning, Donna. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
We're good. I'm also going to take it from the car. I'm in between appointments. Rob kept sending me the invites, but they kept going to my spam, so I finally found them, and here I am.
Yes. So while we wait for Rob, I just wanted to let you all know we're sending out a survey in the next few hours. So we realize that some of you have unsubscribed accidentally. So we're just want to know if you did by accident, we'll add you back. So we'll make sure you receive them. Hi, Rob.
Yeah, how's everybody doing? Do you have AI companion going?
Yes, I do.
And we are live. So welcome everybody.
Hi.
Is Fran on? I know you mentioned about the New Jersey thing, right?
Rob, I'm here. Say it again.
No, we're waiting for Fran Blakely.
Oh.
So let me text her, Rob, to let her
All right.
yeah. So
And we'll start. We'll do an interruption in the middle. Now, was that you, Frank?
That's me.
Is it your turn or is it Tiffany's turn to talk?
We can both talk. Tiffany, you want to go on? It doesn't matter. I'm open. I'm game.
I think we should do it together.
There you go, Tiffany.
And you know why
start.
we're
Ladies
in such
first.
a good mood? Because the rates are finally moving in our favor. So that's why Frank and I are smiling today. So yeah, we've had a little bit of a good run. Definitely over the last couple days, the rates are coming down a bit, and I'm locking a lot of my pipeline in now. The goal is really lock short term, float long term. I'm sure Frank agrees with that. And we have a lot of things coming out next week, although it's a short week. There's talk that China and the U.S. have come to an agreement, which I think was making stocks rally. So that's good news. We're waiting for the job reports next week, so we'll have some that'll shed some light on where the rates are going to go. But it's a holiday weekend, so going into the holiday weekend, it's a little, it's a little flat. Frank, do you agree? Do you have anything to add?
I agree totally, and it's super exciting. One other and the nice thing too with the rates coming down, obviously, qualifications, people do qualify for a little bit more. So whether it's an extra 20,000 on their purchase price or 50,000, depending upon the size of the mortgage, that just because of the rates coming down, that just increased their purchase ability. So we're super excited about that. The other thing too is what's kind of weird is crypto is making a play in the mortgage industry. It's so early right now. We don't really know what's going to happen with it, but they're talking about using crypto as currency for home buying. So, usually you have to have assets in your bank account for a period of time, but crypto, you don't have to have it because you don't cash it out like a stock or whatever. But it's an early thing. We'll keep you updated as we get more information about it. But crypto is going to be a big play in the mortgage industry. So it's going to be a wild ride. So we'll see. We'll see what the agencies say, and we'll keep you all posted.
All right. And what's the 10-year around, and what's a 30-year fixed ballpark?
So 10-year this morning. Well, currently it's at 428. It opened at, I think, at 424 this morning. It's up a little bit, but not too bad. Rates now are somewhere in the mid to upper sixes. Again, depending on credit scores. Government loans are definitely better. Mid to lower sixes. With lower credit scores, the rates are higher, but they're in the sixes now instead of the sevens. So it's definitely good. We're moving in the right direction, as Tiffany did say. So we're super excited about it.
Agreed.
Fantastic. So I guess before we go,
I have Fran here. She's on Zoom now.
oh, Fran, I don't see her. While we're waiting for her to pop on, I wanted to introduce Yakenya Moyes, our new Princeton leader. you want to wave, and we're excited to have her. It was an incredible first meeting. I mean, have you ever seen more loyal agents in a company? Like, if you had 20 years experience, you weren't even in the top 5, right? I think you're on mute there.
Who, me?
Yes, yes. All those agents been with us forever, and they welcomed you with open arms. So
They absolutely did. It was
welcome to
fantastic.
welcome to the Remax Select Group family, and we're excited to have you.
Thank you. Excited to be here and looking forward to getting to know all of you.
Fantastic. While we're waiting for Fran, in Pennsylvania, just out of curiosity, if anybody's from there, how does are there like exorbitant transfer fees when you buy or sell real estate? I'm not very familiar with how that works in Pennsylvania, and it's going to lead into what's going on here in New Jersey. Any of our Pennsylvania team are shy today?
I'm here. I just put the link in the chat. I'm gonna send it. Oh, there we go. Jonah did it too. So I'm here.
So, Frank, can you just give us like a very high level conversation, short one about what is being proposed in New Jersey, and how that's likely to impact, especially in Franklin Lakes area?
It's actually likely to impact throughout many of the counties of the state, because the increase in the real estate transfer fund tax from 1% on properties selling over $1 million to 2% is being proposed by Governor Murphy in his budget. And New Jersey Realtors has taken on the fight. They're in the assembly trying to fight this new tax, because $1 million in our area is really almost like not a really high price range anymore. I mean, we have simple split levels selling for $900,000, so the second part of it is that on homes over $2 million, he wants to increase the real estate transfer tax to 3%. So New Jersey Realtors right now, from what I understand, is they are trying to keep it at 1% for homes up to 2 million or $2 million. And it's very simple to take action if you're a New Jersey Realtor. When you click on the link and you enter your name and home address, it's very sophisticated. It automatically comes up and says who the representative is for you, and it automatically drafts a letter and an email to go to them. You don't have to look anything up. You don't have to do anything. You just have to put in your address, your home information, and you should be hit submit, and this will go out. They are meeting, at the state capitol now, these few days, working on this budget. So it will be very impactful if you can please participate in this if you live in New Jersey, and do the call to action.
Thank you. I think it's very important that we maintain advocacy for our industry. So New Jersey people do that, and people in adjacent states in Florida and Arizona, keep your fingers crossed, because there's always a lot of copying that goes on. So we don't want to have this trend start.
So for New
So-
Jersey, last comment for New Jersey, we just look at the chat. We both shared the same link. We're also going to send you guys a text message, because obviously this is going to affect all of us. So please just take 2 minutes of your time and just fill it out. That's going to help all of us. So, and if you don't receive it, reach out to your office manager and we'll make sure to send it out to you.
Fantastic. So today's topic is influence. And when I say the word influence, what does that mean to you? If you want to just unmute and share like stream of consciousness. We talk about influence. What does that mean to anybody?
Means the ability to make things happen, change events.
Okay. Like what would an example of influence be for you, Bobby?
It could be breaking down a monthly payment to a buyer and explaining to them that here's how you could afford this house. It could be talking about marketing strategy to a seller, and influencing their decision why not to overprice their home.
Okay, very good. Anybody else have, and Bobby, is that a positive or a negative connotation to you if I'm exercising influence?
In my last examples, it's a positive, because I was, in my mindset, was somebody wasn't 100% sure, didn't know about alternatives. I provided the alternatives, I provided the answers, which helped them make an educated decision.
Okay, very good. Two other opinions on when I say the word influence. What comes to mind?
Rob, I think of it in terms of interactions with other agents. If I can exert influence on behalf of my clients to get their offer accepted over other agents' offers, because I have a reputation of making sure the deals close, I think that's a very big positive for my client.
Yep. So that's a huge positive. And, I would even take that even a step further, Robert, and say that, if you don't exercise influence, that you're providing a disservice or jeopardizing the outcome of a client's transaction. And we have a duty as a representative to honestly influence the outcome by doing everything we can that's honest and not manipulative. One other person with a comment on what is influence, like what does that mean to you, stream of consciousness? Mr.
Rob,
Durso.
doesn't influence also reflect your sphere and the people you know and your ability to have credibility in the industry, your ability to be the local expert? That's part of influence. And for people to call you and then trust what you're telling them, that's influence. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, that's what you wish for in your entire existence as an agent.
And how about Rob, being a good influence? Won't that rise? Everybody, all ships will rise in your presence, right? Because they see what you're accomplishing, and you're influencing them to be, more successful, to have better goals, to be a little bit more disciplined, right? So these are all, I believe, these are all positive connotations to the word influence.
I think that influence and credibility go hand in hand. And an example I experienced this week had to do with you talking about when people go from primary residence to income property and having an appraisal done so that their capital gains will be positively affected. So I had that conversation with somebody this week, and they were very surprised, and it improved my status with them. And I'm assuming it means my credibility with them, and it helped both parties. It helped me, establish a relationship with them, and it helped them with a factor they would have not known about.
Wonderful. Well, you are providing some evidence for what I'm going to talk about, but that one there is you demonstrated your expertise and credibility, which created trust, right?
Yes.
So all of those things, as an expert, not an internet expert, but a true expert, gave you credibility to have more influence in the process. I'm going to read, this is my ChatGPT definition here. Influence is a fascinating blend of psychology, communication, and presence. And when yielded intentionally, can be one of your most powerful tools in both business and life. While scholars and strategists break it down in different ways, one robust framework includes 6 core components of influence, popularized by Robert Cialdini. And I'm going to go through some of these core components of influence. The first one is reciprocity. Okay. And there are different ways that you can look at reciprocity. I've always had my own image of reciprocity, and it was almost like an ATM where I had to make deposits before I could take a withdrawal. And that's on the emotional or relationship basis, right? If you're helping somebody, they're probably going to help you out without even asking, right? And that's human nature. People tend to return favors of kindness, give value first, whether it's insight, help, or thoughtful gestures, and it creates a natural pull for others to respond in kind. Now, did you ever wonder why when you go to the car dealer, they say, would you like a soda or coffee or water? Because they want to give you something before they have a subliminal ask for the sale. Does that make sense? So like your hospitality is a way of giving, which helps people be more inclined to buy from us. Okay. And he did, to prove this, he did some studies, and he even went counterintuitive. In a McDonald's years ago, when somebody came in, they gave a little toy or something to the guest. And they studied, you know, if there's a family of 4, we give them a little gift. And then there's another case where we don't give them a gift. And they looked at how does that change the buying pattern? And it increased the buying of food by 12% by just the providing of a gift. Okay. And then they wanted to test it further. Okay. And what they did is they gave a yogurt sample at the McDonald's, which was something that they thought might have the inverse, because you eat the yogurt, you might be less hungry. And it actually increased the buying by 24%, ironically, exactly double what it did by giving a tchotchke or a toy. So the power of reciprocity, when you give, you get back, is truly, it's, in my opinion, it's not a theory. It's like, it's a law. It's like gravity. You throw something up, it comes back down. You give to somebody, you know, in great majority of the time, you will be looking to get something back in return without asking. Principle number 2 is a new one, which was not in this initial study, which is the principle of retreat. Okay. And let's see. This principle of retreat was done with a study where they went into like urgent care centers and whatnot, and they said, would you like to participate in our long-term blood drive and give 1 unit of blood every 6 weeks for 2 years? Now, who would sign up for that? Would anybody be like inclined if you went to the urgent care and they said, hey, would you like to participate in our long-term blood drive and give 1 unit of blood every 6 weeks for 2 years? The answer is probably no. But when they did this, or would you like to give 1 unit tomorrow? Okay, if they asked if you'd like to give 1 unit tomorrow, they actually had a sub 33% compliance rate. But when they asked it, after asking them if they wanted to do the long term or would you like to give 1 unit tomorrow, they had a 55% compliance rate. Okay, and that's called the principle of retreat. If that makes any sense? Does that resonate with you? And in that context, it's pretty powerful, right? You're like 6 weeks, every 6 weeks for 2 years. Hell no, but I can come tomorrow. So, you know, they were saying, don't phrase it. Would you like to give 1 unit? Would you like to give 1 unit tomorrow? Would get you a much lower rate than if you did it with the retreat principle. And let me just see here my notes. The next principle is commitment and consistency. And this one is defined by ChatGPT, and not my handwritten notes, is once somebody takes a stand or makes a choice, they're more likely to act in ways consistent with that identity. Small yeses often lead to bigger commitments. Now, my demonstration of number 3. Try to connect these two to the, I'm going to come back to that one here. There is a comment that the good doctor said is, and this is relevant, I think, to us when, listing properties, showing properties. It's don't ask for feedback or opinions, ask for advice. Can anybody think of how you would use that in our industry?
Yeah, ask, so some buyer looks at your property, buyer's agent brings the buyer to look at your property. They don't write an offer. You follow up with them, you thank them for showing the property, and you ask, are your people interested in writing an offer? They say no. So, well, what do you think would have to happen before your people were interested in in this listing? So you're asking their advice towards, towards making a sale.
Right. And I think maybe even another way, Richard, would be, what do you think of the pricing of the property? Where do you think it should be? And if you're at 700, they say it looks like it's about a 660 house. And then maybe you can kind of go from that direction to getting them to commit that to writing and making an offer would be a way of, instead of asking for feedback, because feedback creates a negative loop, right? If I say to you, Richard, can you share with me some feedback on the showing, right? What do you normally expect to get?
Negativity.
Negativity, right? What's your opinion of that house? The bedrooms are too small. I don't like the backyard, right? So I guess asking for feedback or what your opinion is, as opposed to advice, and maybe advice might be, hey, if you were to move in there, what would you change? Right? Would be giving you the vision to see yourself there and say, well, if I were to move in there, the only thing I think I need to change would be to maybe blow out the back so you had a bigger family room and kitchen. You know what I mean? Like, it takes it from a positive, from a critical to a positive, right? The opposite of influence, or the negative connotation to influence, which would probably strike a very different feeling in your gut, is manipulation, right? If you feel you're being manipulated, do you feel that that's a positive thing? If I'm trying to manipulate my buyers or my agents, or I'm trying to manipulate a client, what does that sound like?
That your agenda is stronger than theirs.
I mean, manipulate sounds like I'm trying to maybe deceive or trick or influence you through my own self-serving needs, as opposed to trying to get you to do what's right for yourself. That's how I view the term of manipulation versus influence. And I really think influence is a very positive North Star for me and for our industry. We had a team meeting here yesterday, and with the Chamber's elite team, and you have no idea how much influence is involved in putting a transaction together, right? So, we might think influence is just between a buyer or a seller, right? But how many people, or how many times do we exercise influence to get a transaction closed? Who wants to try to take us from start to finish with that? Anybody? Somebody's got to give it a shot.
Rob, can you repeat that, please?
I said, how many people do we need to influence to have a satisfactory conclusion to a real estate transaction?
One.
One? Who?
No.
Either the buyer or the seller.
Well, you may have an appraiser in there too.
About 50.
50 or 15?
50.
Okay, possibly. So Bobby, I said that because I wanted to make a point here. Because if there's let's just say it's a couple or an individual that's buying, obviously they have to be influenced to make an offer, right? And you probably have to influence them to make an offer that's acceptable, that you can sell. But after you get that, do you not have to influence the opposing agent and feed influence influence so that they can influence their seller. And then once that gets done, you have attorneys in some states that need influence. You have to influence people again when there's a home inspection issue. You might have to influence an appraiser. You know, there's a lot of levels of influence that go on in a real estate transaction that we don't even think about, right? And Bobby, I know you're or at least I believe you're calling, you know, the listing agent, or you're trying to get a buyer's agent to put in the best possible offer by influencing them to get their client to do the right thing, correct?
Correct.
So you see that it's a lot more complex than one might initially see. Like, oh, I got to influence them to make the right offer. You know, there's a much deeper process to that. Another one that we talked about yesterday was the concept of social proof, right? And for me, you know, I thought before really thinking about this deeply that perhaps social proof was just like an example or a client review. But I think social proof is a lot deeper than that in our real estate business. What social proof do we use when we're trying to influence somebody?
Positive examples.
Testimonials.
So testimonials are the obvious part, I think, but there's some other social proof that I think we might overlook, or maybe we do it without realizing it's social proof.
Personal. Yeah.
But if somebody wants to make an offer, might it not be advisable to offer social proof and to give them actionable social proof, which might mean, you know, going to somebody and saying, hey, Alexa, you know, the last, you know, 7 properties that sold in the first week on the market sold for 4.2% above the ask price. Is that not social proof?
I think that's
Right.
that's more like data type of proof. For me, social proof is, you know, a neighbor referring you, or a third party putting in a good word for you. That's just.
I guess I guess the social proof that you have, I believe, is the
Person.
Traditional social proof, right? You look there and somebody else said, you know, Lena did a great job and, you know, sold my house or helped me buy a house like this. But I think other social proof might be, hey, here's some things that happened. What do you think is likely to happen for this particular property? Okay, giving them different examples of what's going on, and data is part of social proof. The ChatGPT description: when uncertain, people look to others for guidelines, testimonials, case studies, and evidence of popularity validate your position, right? So a case study would be, you know, the last 7 houses that went under contract under 10 days on the market, here's how they went. That's my case study. The social proof is the client saying that Alina did a phenomenal job and, you know, everybody should work with her. So I'm expanding the principle of social proof and giving you other tools on how to use that to land with a better outcome. And all of this influence is designed to unwind the frustration that we've all had when the right choice is obvious to us and it's obvious to the world except for your client. Right? I mean, you've been there where, you know, you go through and this is clearly the right choice, but a client's in the emotional state and they make a compromised decision because of fear. Okay, so you haven't really influenced them to do the right thing. number 4 or 5, depending upon where you put his last, the one of retreat. Number 4 would be authority. And demonstrated expertise or credibility creates trust. How you present your knowledge, credentials, or track record can strongly sway outcomes. Okay. And, authority is twofold, right? Authority is they do the research on you and they look online, they see what type of an authority you are. But in reality, that could all be lost in the way that you handle yourself in an appointment. Would you agree or disagree? Right? If you have authority, but you don't act like you have authority, it's lost. Okay. So it's demonstrated expertise and credibility that creates trust. It's important to note how you present your knowledge, credentials, or track record will strongly influence the outcome. I think I will come back to that one later. The next one is the principle of liking. Okay. And this principle is people are influenced by those who they know, like, or feel connected with. Relatability, empathy, and shared values build emotional bridges. Okay, and there's an example, and I'm going to find this here. There's an example where, let's see. It was a college student that was doing a solicitation on campus, and they were doing a fund raising for the United Way, and they were studying how people responded based upon the introduction, and the introductions went up 400% if they just started the conversation like, I'm a Princeton student just like you. I wanted to see if you were open to making a donation to the United Way. Okay, when they added, I'm a student just like you, 400%, 4 times the effectiveness. Okay, and the reason why I bring that up is, if you have the opportunity, I'm going to revert back to Bobby Golden. You say, hey, I'm a Woodbridge resident just like you. I want to, just by saying that, creates a subliminal bond, right? And you have to make sure that you can't be, you can't say, well, I was you can't manipulate that because it generally doesn't work. But what you can do is you can find other commonalities to help create that bond and increase your ability to influence. Did anybody ever feel like you change your posture, you change your behavior when you're having a conversation and you find out that somebody was in the same fraternity you were, or they went to the same university, or they went to the same high school, or they were born in the same town? Does anybody ever have any connection where they feel connected to some stranger just because, they grew up in the same town or they went to the same university?
Happens
Right?
It's the law of
every time
attraction.
I go on vacation.
I'm sorry?
Happens every time I go on vacation. You bump into somebody, in conversation, and where you're from. They say, "Oh, I'm from Woodbridge," or, I'm from, maybe Monmouth County, but I used to live in Woodbridge. What an icebreaker that is.
Yep.
It's
So that
disarming. It's disarming for both parties, kind of takes the pressure off, and that we have something and something easy to talk about, not having to find something. That's what I find.
Yep.
Disarming.
So they feel connected. When I was watching one of the podcasts from Robert Cialdini, he talked about the greatest salesman in the world. And I won't put this out to question, but he talks about a gentleman by the name of Joe Girard, who was a Chevy salesman like 40, 50 years ago. And during his career, he averaged 6 sales per day. Okay, in most organizations, people who had 6 sales per week were on the leaderboard and they were put on a pedestal. And his claim to fame was that he would send out a note each month, and instead of signing it sincerely, he would sign, "I like you, Joe Gerard." And he got to be so successful that he hired 2 people to write all of these letters for him each month because he was selling so many cars. And that is the liking principle, or brought to a T, right? If people feel like, hey, you know what, I'm connected, I like Dan, I'm going to work with Dan, right? So he really took that to the next level. Let's see, being an authority, power versus influence. He talks about advertising, right? And he talks about an ad, which is really interesting. He says, an ad that actually performed very well, which shouldn't have, was an ad where, and I recall seeing this, but he goes, "I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV," and then he endorses something medically. And he said that ad actually performed very well, but there was no authority, right? So he said, be careful for like this false connection. And he's like, when you see Matthew McConaughey selling an automobile, like you have to think to yourself, what does Matthew McConaughey know about cars, right? But it's just like that familiarity complex. Number 6 is scarcity or fear of loss. Limited availability increases perceived value. Framing urgency or exclusivity can drive decisive action. Okay. And I think in this case, he talks specifically about real estate because real estate really does have scarcity. Every property is by definition unique. In real estate, you likely leverage all of these social proof, client success stories, authority via market experience, scarcity when negotiating multiple offers. Want to explore how to architect your listing presentation or client conversations around these principles, ethically amplify persuasion. So I'll read that again. In real estate, you've likely leveraged all of these: social proof through client success stories, authority via market experience and expertise, scarcity when negotiating multiple offers. We all should explore how to architect listing conversations to client conversations around these principles to ethically amplify persuasion. So I think real estate is a really great, it's a great industry with a very high return for successfully providing influence. Are there any ways that you could think of that you want to share with the group on how you exert influence, not manipulation, in your business?
So Rob, I can tell a story that I had a listing, and on the first day that we had the first open house, I arrived a half hour before the start of the open house, and there was a car sitting out front already with a family in it. And during the open house, they of course were the first ones in, and we had a lot of couples through, and we got several offers, and including one from these people who gave a very solid offer, but we had one or two that were better, but their agent I knew, and he said to me, look, I know that my clients have a home sale contingency, but I promise you that I'll give you a schedule of what's going to happen by what date, and it will happen by that date, and this deal will close. And I spoke to my seller about it, and he said, well, if you think this guy is really going to do what he says, then let's do it. And we did, and he did, and the deal closed. And it was only because of the influence that this agent who I knew was able to put on me to give me a sense of security for my buyer, a seller.
Okay, I mean, that's an excellent example. And, sometimes when we sit here and we hear stories, like it doesn't immediately resonate with us, but, at a critical moment in time when you don't have to think about it, you can, your brain will be programmed to give you better choices. I'm going to give another example that I think would be good to follow up on yours, Robert, which is there was a study that Cialdini did where they did electronic negotiations. And I'm just looking at my chicken scratch here. He said that the successful negotiations with people negotiating electronically without without being able to talk or see themselves visually, and solving complex problems like lawsuits, right? If they were negotiating together, increased from 6% to 30% if you were allowed people to have conversations outside of just like an electronic, format or forum. And what he said was that when people are communicating freely, they focus on commonalities that they have, and those commonalities would increase it 500% the success rate. Okay. And those commonalities are basically the foundation of the liking principle, right? So, you have a 5-year-old kid, I have a 5-year-old kid, whatever that is, that principle makes does that make any sense if I'm suing Robert Garver because he his dog bit me or whatever, right? And we're angry, and I determined that he has a 5-year-old and I have a 5-year-old, and he grew up in Mountain Lakes, I grew up in Mountain Lakes. You see how this, you can see mentally how this goes, but you see how logically it makes no sense, right? I mean, does it change the outcome, the fact that we're more similar? Probably not. We don't have to be exactly similar, but if there are similarities, it takes the barrier down, and it takes it down such a magnitude that it improves the outcome, not by 5%, not by 24%, but by 500%, from a 6% resolution to a 30% resolution, just by being able to communicate and feel, commonality. Now, still less likely than more likely, but it improves the success rate dramatically. There's a principle called exploitation. And exploitation is when people try to take the reciprocal principle and take advantage of it. And Robert Cialdini says that exploiters deserve to be exploited. And he gave an example of a company that was giving out a free fire extinguisher, saying, "Hey, we'll do a fire safety inspection of your house, and we'll give you a free fire extinguisher." And the scheme was, they give you the free fire extinguisher. They come in and they say, your smoke detector is not good enough. We need to sell you this advanced heat sensing device that will, notify you on your phone if there's a fire in your house, right? And it basically was not a valuable product. And he said that when you sense exploiters, they are meant to be exploited. So they give you the free fire extinguisher, you show them the door and say, thank you very much. Okay. And if you have that in your mind, when you are trying to do something or your brain gives you an inclination to do something that's not authentic, right? That you probably won't get the outcome that you want. Okay. I just want you to like, and I think in real estate, there's probably a lot of different schemes that people had that are not authentic. And most of those that aren't authentic, I believe, don't even work. So, you know, if you do something for purposes of exploitation, people will more times than not see right through that manipulation, and it won't be a successful influence. And the last one that he talked about was unity. And in that note, he kind of talked about, I think it's connected to the liking principle, because his example was about when you find somebody that, you know, is from your town, or, you know, you study the commonalities of outcome versus what unify you in a particular scenario. So in kind of closing, hopefully you'll, you know, subconsciously change your opinion. Instead of asking for feedback or opinions to looking for advice. You'll focus on positioning yourself as more of an authority in all the things that we do, and you know, understand that, you know, most of the people that are burned, they talk about, oh, I did all this for him and they did nothing back, right? The law of reciprocity when it's violated. And I think usually when that happens, it's more of us than them. If that that relates to anybody.
Hi, Rob, can I say something?
Sure.
All right, just wanted to welcome you, Kenya, to our office. We are very excited to have you and looking forward to work with you to make RE/MAX Princeton great again. Also, I would like to take from your advice today, the word rather than looking for feedback advice, it is a very, very great word to say rather than a feedback. The other one, which is I like very much, was the principle of liking. I got a listing yesterday because the homeowner said, Karma, I like you. That's good. Thank you for sharing that.
So, and I would just caution with regard to like the liking principle, not to overdo that. Because
Okay.
I've seen, you know, I've seen instances where people go, oh, you know, they rely too much on that commonality and they don't focus on the totality or the balance of the whole process, right? Because if somebody likes you, but you're not an authority, you know, you're probably going to get tricked into feeling like this sense of security because I feel like karma likes me, that I don't need to go and do the rest of the process, right? And I'm not connecting this to one of the principles, but I wanted to share this with you. And this is one of those senior moments when
Hey, Bosh.
Hold on. This is one of these senior moments
Bosh.
when, oops, let me, hey, Karma, if you can mute yourself if you're not talking.
Sure.
If he talks about the Cuban Missile Crisis and the famous story about Kennedy blinking, or excuse me, about Khrushchev blinking. Who knows that story? Anybody know about, anybody read about the Cuban Missile Crisis in the history book? Come on, folks.
Sure, lived through it.
So you lived through the Cuban. So what was the story that you believe happened?
The Russians were on the edge of the United States, bringing in their battleships, and it was a moment where a brand new administration, green in there, stood up to them and gave the big threat, and it worked.
Yeah, that's the conventional wisdom. Apparently, and this is probably more like the story, Chrissy. In order for both countries to save face, the story that was told was U.S. intelligence found missiles in Cuba pointed at the U.S. 90 miles away, and there were additional Russian ships coming in with more missiles to go in Cuba and point at the U.S. And the fear was that if the United States and Russia had gotten into a nuclear war, it could theoretically wipe out half or more of the entire planet. So that was the stakes. But what I believe really happened, or if you believe some of these authorities, was that the US had missiles pointed at Russia in the country of Turkey. Okay, and Russia rightfully was not thrilled with that, right? So if this is in fact the case, so JFK claims to have blocked the Russian ships from coming, and the story is Khrushchev blinked. But the reality or the influence was that, Kennedy said, I will remove our missiles that are pointing at your country from Turkey. You give me the appearance of having you blink, and we can resolve this matter. Now, obviously, I wasn't there. I'm not a historian, but this is the story of Robert Cialdini on how the missile crisis was resolved and how everybody exerted influence to tell their own story.
Hey,
So-
Rob, sorry. Yeah, I'm Cuban and I was on the other side.
Okay.
When hearing this story, yeah, I grew up in communism and they used to, well, I don't, I don't agree with the communism concept at all. I think it's criminal, but the thing is that they used to say in Cuba that the crisis came after Bay of Pigs attack. I think if you guys wanna go deeper on it, you can find this documentary called "The Cuba Libre Story." It's coming. It came on Netflix, and it describes exactly what it was, and it's very interesting because it was gonna be a world war, and the president of the United States could stop it. It was a crazy decision that Fidel Castro made at that time, putting the freaking missiles in order to make a war and threatening the United States. But yeah, it's a great story. I wanted to say that I'm Cuban, so yeah, I was very close to that. I'm 34, but the history that is being told all around is crazy. It's crazy. It's insane.
Right, but and first of all, thank you for sharing that with us, Richard. And I just want to say, if you think about it logically, right? Do you think that Khrushchev back in the '60s went back to his country and said, "I blinked"? Or do you think that he had a story of influence on how, he actually won? And looking at the recent, world political turmoil, I see Iran saying that, hey, we won, we got what we want. I see, Israel maybe saying we got what we wanted, and everybody's telling their own story to try to influence their people that, we got a positive outcome. where the truth lies, maybe somewhere in between, right?
Yeah.
But I do think, that, in our business, just to sum it up, knowledge and authority probably is not enough. There has to be a felt or a perceived authority. And then we have to take the knowledge and use that to be able to influence all the different people in a real estate transaction to have a positive outcome. Okay. It's not just, good enough to put a good offer together and send it out. We all know that that doesn't always work, that we need to, kind of manipulate, or we need to kind of elbow the process to make it go the way that we want it to go, right? Sometimes the way, like, I've seen transactions influenced is by getting people to have agreement, right? Hey, Karma, if my client has high integrity, they're going to close when they say they're going to close, they're going to do this, right? And you keep getting you to say yes, and I'm basically influencing you to make my offer because you're going to feel more positive about it. And let's face it, we've had transactions where you have an agent on the other side of that transaction where you feel really good about them. You're like, I really think that this guy, Robert Garver, is going to do what he said he's going to do. He seems authentic, he's communicating well. And then you've had probably more transactions where you have somebody that, hey, did you give that offer? Do you have an offer of your own? Are you trying to not, right? Do you ever have somebody comes at you like that? You have another offer. Is it your offer? I knew it was your offer, Karma. You're not going to, they're thinking you're not going to present mine, right? Has anybody ever seen that?
All the time.
Now, when somebody comes at you and attacks you, like, that's not, I mean, that's completely counterproductive to, they could have the best offer, but you're like, I don't want to work with that person because they're violating that liking principle. Like, I don't even like you. You're attacking my integrity. We haven't even met yet. Right? So there is a lot of influence. I give myself a C+ on presenting it, but if you ever want to read the book or watch Robert Cialdini talk about influence, it will impact the way you do things. You might not leave watching a podcast or reading the book by saying, I've got it, right? It's perfect. But there are little changes that you'll make just because you have an awareness of it. Like your subconscious will be like, okay, let me buy lunch, because I'm basically going to be giving, and now there's this law of reciprocity. Now, if you're shortcutting the process and you're not being the proper representative for them, that's never going to work. But if you do that, it just makes it that much easier for the transaction to go through smoothly, right? Makes it that much easier to get referrals. Joe Girard sending out a letter each month saying, signing the bottom of the letter, I like you, Joe Girard.
Rob?
Yeah, also speaking for the word influence, that I really like a lot, and I will actually definitely practice in my file, in all my files. However, the same person I listed his house, he bought the house from me, and he said, you know what, Karma, I think I like you because you influenced me to put an offer on this house, and I'm sure you're gonna get me an offer in this. You influence people to get an offer in my house too. So influence is a great word for sure. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes.
Hi, Rob. Just a quick note here. I recently sold a property in Plantation, and it's interesting that my husband and myself were speaking about his barber who has been thinking of buying in the neighborhood. And he says, I don't know what's wrong with him. He won't get off the fence. I said, in time they will. I'm coming home, parked in the driveway, and I see two people coming out of the house next door, which was for sale through the POA person had a daughter who took the listing. So I'm going inside and somebody says to me, "Hi, are you the neighbor?" I'm saying, I'm so exhausted. And I said, "Yes, I'm the neighbor." And so I couldn't hear a plane flying overhead. So I walked over. He says, "Oh, we might be thinking of putting an offer on this house." And so I'm looking at him and I'm saying, he looks so familiar because I only met him twice. And then he says, "By the way, I am this person and this is my wife." I said, "I don't believe it. We were just talking about you this morning at breakfast." They went to look at the property. They were not in love with it. I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." I call my husband. We're talking and everything. The next day, he calls my husband. He says, "Oh my God, we might be putting an offer on the house." He says, "No, you're not. My wife knows of another property that's not yet listed. And that's the property you need to see." They said, "Really? Where is that property? We never even knew you lived on that road." And I said, we got talking. I spoke with the agent because I know the property was being renovated and things were being done. I said, "When are you putting your property on the market?" She said, "In a matter of like 10 days, I'm going to have photographs taken. I have 2 more things to do. And then we're putting it." I said, "You're not putting it on the market because I have buyers for your property." This is before they even saw it. We met, they saw the property, they were in love. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to leave you both to, talk between yourselves." "Oh no, there's nothing for us to talk about. We want to put an offer on the property right now." When I told the listing agent, she was in shock. She said, "How did you know they would have loved it?" I said, "Because it's a great property." She says, "But normally this doesn't really happen." I said, "It's happening now, and we're going to be in contract, and it's going to be a clean contract. It's a cash transaction." And everything was, the buyers were so impressed. They keep calling me even after now we've closed. Like, they can't believe they got the property. The agent says, "I hope we can remain friends because you are so professional. You got us this thing. I didn't have to list it." It was just amazing how everything just worked together. The only hitch that we had was with the association, and the listing agent and myself wrote to all members of the board to get the matter addressed. And when the president saw it, he approved our plans to get in.
So Rebecca, that kind of is even a tangent to this where, if you ever have like a definiteness of purpose and something's going to happen, and this has got kind of going really deep, but like if you meet somebody, you're like, "I know I can get this done. I know it's definitely going to happen," and then it happens, like that is not only influence, but it's also like you had a vision and you knew it was going to happen before it happened. And I don't know, I can't explain that principle, but I do know that when I know, I'm going to be able to be successful with this, and you go out there with the mindset that it somehow finds a way to manifest itself. And I think you kind of melded those 2 principles together. And I bet you we can go another 20 minutes with people who are like, "I knew I could pull this off," and then all of a sudden something came on that met that need. But if you don't have that positive belief like you did, it probably doesn't happen. And it's like a illogical solution. Maybe it's just the mindset makes you aware of what's possible and you just get it done. But thank you for sharing that story as well. And I wish everybody a great weekend. I can't believe it's going to be the 4th of July soon.
Yeah.
So enjoy.
Rob, can you stay on with me a minute?
Yeah, I'll call you separately there, Mr. Abe.
Rob,
Thank you, Mr.
sorry,
Butler.
before you go, what's the name of the book for Mr. Gialdini?
It's simple, Influence.
Okay, I got it. I'm ordering it now.
All right, Abe, I'll call you after this is done because this is going to keep recording, and I'll reach right back out to you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.